Okay. And Piedad, if at any point, you see that my internet might be a little bit kind of fuzzy, then just either message me or pop it in the chat box if you can. And Piedad will also just keep an eye on the chat box for you. If, as I'm sharing information with you, you have questions that come up, or if you feel a little bit lost, or you kind of, just want to kind of say something, and then Piedad will keep an eye on it, and then she'll just check in with me, just to see whether we'll talk about it now or we have time, at the end of it. So overall, I get just connecting with your energy for the moment. I overall feel a little kind of nervousness from you guys, and also anticipation and excitement. So I'm just, feeling the vibes. And I think all of that is really wonderful, because animal communication, I think we're all attracted perhaps to this masterclass because you've all at some level tried it, experienced it. Maybe you've had animal communication from somebody else, and perhaps kind of gone through this kind of maybe a little bit of a hit and miss. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't seem to work. Sometimes one animal communicator has a certain way of doing it, another one has, and you're not quite sure. And then when you try it yourself, like I say, sometimes you think, I know what this is all about, and other times it doesn't. So your emotions, the way that you're sharing, a mixture of excitement, some are frustrated, some are confused, some are, intrigued. So all of it really comes with the territory of animal communication. It's absolutely normal to feel like this. Okay, so let me go into a few of my slides. So have you ever experienced getting nothing back from your animals, from your pets, when you ask them a question? Is this something that you have encountered? And then you're wondering, am I doing it right? Do you think that if you don't get a response, you're actually doing it wrong? Or you actually get answers, but it comes to you as thoughts, but you doubt it? So what I'm going to be sharing with you in this class and in the other two classes, if you booked in for all three, is that the solution often lies in the way that you phrase your questions and the way you communicate them to your pet. So I'm using the terminology pet because I primarily always want to encourage you to communicate with your own animals. But all that I'm going to share with you in this masterclass will also help when you're communicating with other people's animals. The content of this masterclass has come from the years of experience that I personally have had from doing client consultations, as well as working with my own animals. Primarily, it kind of started with my work in client consultations, because the clients will mostly require some kind of solution, some kind of outcome that they want from the communication. And it's the same when I would communicate with my own animals. Often it would be that I want something out of it. We say, I want to know blah, 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 because I want to be able to help my dog, or I want to be able to communicate with my cat because I want him to stop doing something, a certain behavior. So where there is an outcome or the need for a solution, I have started to find that sometimes I can get lots of information just automatically from the animal. And we have this whale of a time where I'm receiving lots of information. I probably have to write it down, and it feels like the information's all channeled down to me. I might get pages and pages of incredible wisdom from the animal, and when I stop, it's like, wow, that's just incredible. But then when I present that information, say, to the animal's person, as wonderful as that communication is to hear from their animal, there can also sometimes be this, well, I don't really know still what to do with X, Y, and Z, which is why I wanted to communication. So I've been through that experience. So I knew that I was receiving communication from the animal. I was able to relay quite a lot of the information, but I often sometimes feel as if it didn't quite hit the mark because the person kind of went away thinking, well, yeah, it was really lovely to hear, my horse talk about A, B, C, and D, but I still don't know what to do about his sore leg. So that was one scenario that got me kind of like, ooh, I feel a bit kind of, that I didn't do a good job. Then I'd have another situation whereby I could, with my skills that I've accumulated over the years as an aromatherapist, as an energy worker, as a kinesiologist, as a, energy chakra healer, because, I wanted to kind of accumulate in my toolbox the ability to really gain information about, say, an animal, particularly about their health issue or their emotional trauma. I know how to do dowsing, I even use oracle cards, so we call them energy tools. Massage as well, when you're massaging the animal, you can kind of get thoughts in your head or sensations or feelings or information just pops into your head. So I could have that situation whereby a lot of what I would call the knowingness would kick in, and I can use energy tools to connect in with the information. Let's use, because we talked about health, the state of the energy imbalances of an animal. And I can paint a picture and go, right, actually, there's an imbalance in their liver. There is issues around their spleen, which means, this dog probably needs a certain therapy. But then what I felt was lacking was that I didn't really know how the animal felt about the way that I was assessing their energy and then recommending what treatments they would have. And then what would happen is that when the person then takes the information that I've offered them and then say take it to a particular practice therapy, that the information that I had tapped into the energetic field, said, like, for example, this dog really needs acupuncture because there's a real imbalance in their energy, energy flow. Then they might find that although that is what, in theory, the dog needs, they found that the dog wasn't cooperative. So that when it came to actually getting the dog to have acupuncture, the dog would either be frightened or uncooperative or unhappy. So there was a missing element in there. Then there was a kind of a third scenario, which tends to happen, I think, with our own animals, where we have a lot of conversation. We talk to them a lot and we tell them what we want to do, or we say to them, I can see all of this that you're doing, or I'm worried about you. So there's lots of conversations going on. And that you've got to either sort out their problems or minimize the issue or manage the issues because you want to live in harmony. But again, there's another element that's missing, is as if we're talking at them, we're talking for them, and they kind of just don't answer. So I think that's probably the biggest frustration that a lot of us can experience when we come to communicate with our own animals. So again, it feels as if one of those elements are missing. I've been through all of those. And I've also been working very closely with professional animal communicators for the past 2 years, doing one-to-one mentoring, particularly with really looking at when they experience blocks, when they experience a lack of confidence, when they feel that, there are times when they are extremely effective when they have a client session, but then there are other times when they feel almost like complete failure. And then it's really hard to pick themselves back up again for the next session. So over the years, I've been very intrigued with this because I just want us to get to a place where communicating with animals is is as natural as it can, as natural as it should be and want to be, with knowing that we are primarily wanting to use animal communication as a way of resolving issues. So that part, the resolving of issues with our animals using animal communication, I realized brought in a different dimension to what communicating with animals really means as an experience. So if I say to you, go out and talk to a tree, okay, just you and the tree, interspecies communication, you know, is a completely different experience to if I said, go and communicate with your neighbor's dog who is just incessantly barking, so that your neighbor would know what to do in order to, you know, stop the dog barking. When we look at it that way, then we realize that actually there's a lot more involved when we are communicating with animals. We're not just communicating with them, say, animal to animal, where there's no kind of need to analyze something, resolve something, find a solution for something. However, saying all of that, animal communication is actually, to me, also one of the most effective way to find out what's going on with our animals. So that's what I set out to do. This is really why I wanted to hold this masterclass, because, and specifically around the topic of health, behavior, and end of life, because with these three topics, it really brings in the human element, what we really want from our animals. And in order to really get the best out of our animals, to make it so that they can offer us the information that we want, we've got to make it as simple as possible for them. So that's just the background of what the content is that I'm going to be sharing with you, where it came from, because I just didn't want to have this feeling when I would, be helping clients where it felt as if something kept being missing or something was amiss. I wanted it to be consistent. And I'm happy to say that in the last year or so, once I like to think I cracked it, every single session of mine, I do not have any doubt whatsoever that I am effective in what I'm doing. I'm effective in how I'm offering the communication and guiding my clients with regards to resolving the issues with their animals. And I have seen the evidence of that. And the same with the animal communicators that I've worked with. Instead of trying to work with their confidence and how to gain their confidence, we really looked at what I call the process of what is required when we are using animal communication specifically to look at health, behavior, and end of life issues. Any questions so far? Anybody got any comments or anything? If you want to put it in the chat box, I'll look at that. Okay. So animals have decision-making capacity. They're capable of understanding complex situations and making decisions that are in their best interests. We've seen examples of wild animals finding the best food sources, avoiding predators, and cooperating with their peers to raise young. Our pets, when given the opportunity, have shown they will choose which toy they will play with, what chews they prefer, when they want to stay in or go out, and which bed they prefer. So by providing them with the information they need to make good decisions, we can help them to continue to make the most out of the environments that they inhabit. With the right set of informed and accurate options, animals can weigh up their options and ultimately make decisions that are right for them. To ensure this, we need to be aware that when we communicate with our pets, we ask them questions that would allow them to make informed decisions. To me, this is where the beauty and the power of animal communication really comes in. Because when we really appreciate that our animals have the capacity to make decisions, I mean, every time I say this, I'm just in awe of how before I knew animal communication, I never considered that my own pets would want to choose. You know, I made the choices for them. I might look at them and go, do you want it? Do you not? Oh, okay, let's do it, you know? But the difference now is that I can really connect in and share with them what their options are, and then they can choose. And that's key. And that's what I really want to kind of really get our minds thinking. It's a shift in thinking. It's not a new thinking, it's a shift. So when you consider, if you don't offer your animals the right options, or the options that you can offer them, how can they actually give you an informed decision? So that's key, which we will go into deeper. So thank you to those of you who have offered your animals for us to share and learn from today. So we will be using their situations as an example, because what I also want this masterclass to be is to give you information where you can apply it, so that it's not all theory. It's not, you know, I'm starting off with the concept of mine, and then we're really going to go into you know, into a place where you can apply it. So we're going to be saying hello to Harry and Chili Pepper, Bert, Jamie, Nelson, Romeo, and Elisa. So we will be talking to them later. But first of all, when I wanted to show you this kind of module that I've come up with called the Effective Communication Solution. So when I was sharing with you the stories where I was saying, you know, there was an element where I got loads of communication from this animal, but we didn't really get to the solution or get to a place where their person felt that they had something tangible that they could take away with them. And then I was in another situation where there was lots of conversations, you know, but I got nothing back. I didn't understand, you know, the answers that I was getting, or I was getting no answers at all. Or I could be in a situation whereby I could connect in with the animal's energetic system and get loads of information, but not actually connecting with whether the animal was happy, whether I had their consent. And this is where each of these three elements really need to work together, which I will, again, talk in a little bit more detail. But the three elements are where we have the psychic and the intuitive information, we have the communication aspect, and we have what I call agenda. And to me, this is what creates an effective animal communication when we're looking for a solution or a way to find the solution, because we can't always find the exact solution, but what we can always offer, and I use the word always on purpose, when we have these three elements working together, you will always have the way to create more options. You will be able to find the way to look at how you can resolve a situation. So when I was telling you the story about this animal, whereby I can get loads of information from this animal, and it was just kind of being channeled in and poured in, you know, I don't have to ask almost really any question. The animal's just talking to me, the animal's just sending me visuals and smells and sounds, you know, but without the agenda. So this would be the psychic information working and the communication working. But without the agenda, it meant that it really didn't really have any structure. So if you were looking to help the animal for a specific reason, then it was like I say, you didn't really have anywhere to go with it. Where you have communication and agenda, but you're not using the energetic information, you're not tuning in intuitively. This is the one, I think, where a lot of where when we communicate with our own animals, this is kind of like the missing element where it creates, where we ask lots of questions from the agenda of, I want to sort things out, I want to understand you, but I'm not getting any information in, and there's no flow of information. But that's because the intuitive aspect of it is missing. Then you can have the agenda and you can have the psychic, the intuitive information, where, like I say, you can just go in as an energy worker, you can tap into the information of the animal. But what's missing is the communication. You don't know how your animal feels about it. You don't know if they've given you consent. So again, to me, that feels like one of the elements are missing. So the ideal is to have all three elements working together. So let's look at each element one at a time. The psychic and the intuitive element when it comes to animal communication. This is where you can access information imprinted in the energetic field of the animal. This is where you can perceive old thoughts and emotions, new thoughts and emotions, current life and historical life, and the physical body and internal organs of the animal. So, for example, this is where information flows into your consciousness. For example, when you're doing massage, when you're doing Reiki, when you're doing energy healing, if you work as a psychic, if you work as a medium, and specific energy practices such as energetic body scan, medical intuition, kinesiology, dowsing, radionics. This is information that already exists in the energetic field of yourself and of your animals, which you can use tools and practices to access. Are we all familiar with that? Is anyone here, if you want to kind of put a thumbs down, not aware of the energetic field that we have and that our animals have, that we can access through, I mean, some of you here, I think of quite a few of you here do massage, canine massage. Have you had an experience whereby you're massaging the animal, you're not really thinking anything, you're focused on what you're doing, but you might just get intuitive information, or you find that you work intuitively? I know that that's been my experience. I mean, I'm not a canine massage therapist, but I started with massaging humans. And I remember, and I didn't know anything about energy at the time, but I would be massaging the human. And you know how you can go into this kind of a trance state zone, and then suddenly I'll be like, oh, the shoulder wants me. Like, that's a bit odd, you know. And so I would go and work on the shoulder, or I'd be saying, oh, the leg, you know, seems to be the issue, yet the person hasn't told me that their leg hurts. So it's good that you're getting some information already. So just be aware, energetic information is really there for you. If you feel that it's not something that you can access easily, there is a very quick and effective exercise to just get in touch so that you have the awareness that the energetic information is there. And one of the exercises is, you know, if you rub your hands together, we can try this together. Just rub your hands together. Take a few deep breaths in and out. Just kind of slow your breath down. Don't know if you've done this before. Those of you who probably been in energy healing classes before might have done this. And then if you close your eyes, because it's good to just connect in with your senses, and you place your hands, it's kind of like shoulder width apart. And then move your hands really slowly kind of towards each other. And then try and pull them apart. Just do it as slow as it's comfortable. And then try and really get your hands as close together as possible. and then slowly move them apart. Are you aware of what you're experiencing between your hands? Let me know in the chat box. I know we're doing it quite quickly, but it's a really good way to reconnect our awareness that we are not just a physical body. And when we're doing animal communication, it really is important for us to have that awareness, because often we can approach animal communication so too much in our conscious mind. Okay, so when you look at my 3 circles, and by the way, when I'm sharing about the concept, the 3 elements, just let it kind of go over your head at the moment if you need. You're not meant to study it. I wanted to really, in a way, offer you something to say, this is why I believe when we talk about asking better questions with animals, why it works. Okay, so good. I can see, let me just check the chat box for a moment. So Carol, you're saying so cool. So that sounds like you were excited about what you experienced. Shannon said, so interesting. My hands feel much closer together than they look when I open my eyes to look at them. Lauren, yep, different sensations depending on the distance. And Linda says, I can always feel the energy between my hands, but then I do this a lot. It's still a neat feeling. It's a neat feeling because it reminds us, like I say, we're not just made of the physical body. And when you do that with your pets, and I don't mean you rub your hands on your pets, but those of you who do energy, or massage work, when you lift your hands just above their bodies, okay, and just go slowly towards them and further away from them. This is an exercise to, like I say, to connect to you. Because when we look at our own pets particularly, we forget that they're made of an energetic field, because there's so physical in our lives. We touch them, they're so tactile, we cuddle them. So we're so conscious with our relationship with them. So to actually have an energetic awareness of our animal, and you start to then approach the communication with them with that awareness. Beautiful. So great, all of you. And if you didn't feel anything, it's probably because we're kind of doing it in a little bit of a, kind of like a different setup. Not the most conducive, but it's great that if you also did. So, do try it. And plants are the best ones to practice with. If you go up to, if you have a house plant, really just keep your hands near them and then just draw them away and close. They are like the best communicators with energy with your hands. So it's, like I say, just a great reminder that we are not just made of physical bodies. So when we look at agenda, what do I mean by agenda? Now, when we come to health, when we're looking at communication specifically with our animals' health, we need to be clear about our agenda. And I believe that when it comes to health in animal communication, the agenda needs to be about decision-making. And the decision-making depends on your role with them. Are you having to make a decision as a parent? Are you having to make a decision as a friend? Are you having to make a decision as a healer, a vet, a therapist, a counselor? Because that will, in many ways, determine how you approach your pet. So that's why when you communicate with your own pet, if you're not aware that you're communicating with them, say, as a parent, but really you're trying to find information from them as a therapist, sometimes the communication or the way that you're asking the questions isn't clear enough for them to answer. That can also explain sometimes when people say, how come I don't get that answer from my own animal? But then, I go and book them in with an animal communicator and then they get that answer. So it can be that the different roles that we play can have an influence. And with the communication aspect of animal communication, this is really to do with questions to involve how the animal is feeling, thinking, their views and their opinions, so that they have the decision-making capacity. So the goal of this masterclass is really to focus on the communication aspect of the three elements, okay? But remember, you need all three, but what I want to do is focus on the communication aspect. So I want to present to you options and creative ways to achieve effective communication. So with effective communication, you want to be listening for learning. It sounds obvious, but we have a habit where we're not really listening for learning. We listen to almost immediately find the answer, the cause, almost the diagnosis. But if we listen in order to learn, it gives us this approach where we're more curious, where when we hit almost like a block, or we hit kind of almost like a dead end and we don't get any answers, we're not immediately going, oh, okay, I can't do it. But if you're listening for learning, you would just be curious about it. And also the question you ask determines the answer that you get. So that's kind of a bit of a mind twister, but that will come clear at some point. And it's so important to let go of assumptions. We are unaware of how many assumptions we hold. One of the classic ones would be, oh, you know, all Labradors, they're just like greedy, aren't they? They're just foodie. So of course, you know, when I'm communicating with a Labrador, he's going to tell me he loves food. Now, generalizations. However, that one Labrador that you're talking to, really regard that Labrador as unique, as, you know, as its own character, personality. So letting go of assumptions. And this is really useful part where for those of you who have a lot of knowledge and you think, well, I already know so much. I mean, how will I know that that's communication? Because what I'm getting is something I already know. Well, this is going to help you. You use your observation as the starting point of the conversation. You don't immediately go, oh, well, I already know that about them, so, you know, that's it. No, you say, okay, my observation is that whatever it is you observe, or my knowledge is, and then you communicate with the animal about that. And you say, is this correct? Do you agree with me? So if we use the example of the Labrador and we generalize that they are foodies, so that specific Labrador that I'm talking to, I could be sitting here worried that, okay, I think, you know, it's known that all Labradors are greedy, but then it's only respectful if I communicate to that Labrador and say, is that a fair thing to say about you? Now, that Labrador might go, yeah, I love food, you know, or that Labrador might go, no, you know, I do love food, but I'm not greedy. So use your observation as a starting point of conversation. And also within the communication, when we're asking about health, we often forget to ask the animal how they feel emotionally and spiritually. We're very focused on the physical side because we are very keen to almost get to the cause or how to fix it. So we forget that our animals are made up of physical, emotional, and spiritual, as we are. So communications are far more richer, deeper, and valuable when we communicate and ask them questions around how they feel physically, how they feel emotionally, and how they feel spiritually. So this is why those three elements are really important to work together, because then that will ensure that you have a really good connection with your animal, that you can actually have a conversation that is not just a one-way, one question, I ask you a question, you answer me conversation. And then the thrill of being and feeling competent. So when you shared about your emotion earlier, about where you're at with your communication and where you have, feelings of frustration or confusion or anxiety, when you combine these three elements together, you will experience competency. So again, just as a recap, with the psychic and intuitive aspect, you can use your skills that you've learned as a medical intuitive or a kinesiologist, or an energy healer. With the communication is about really focusing on questions can open up conversation, and is important for decision making when it comes to health. Where are you? What's your role that you play? So we're going to have some examples so that I can help you to really start to apply the three elements, as well as really focusing on the communication aspect, how to ask questions in a way that makes it easier for your animals to answer. So let me just give you a moment to connecting with what I mean about making it easier for your animals to answer. The information that our animals send to us in a communication comes through our intuitive senses. Now, they can come in as thoughts as well. However, depending on how you ask the question, you can also get sensations, visuals, sounds, smells, and taste, and emotions. These intuitive senses really need to be the communication language. So when you get thoughts coming into your head, where you might say something like, "Ooh, I think this dog is telling me he's got diabetes." And then you go, "Oh, how can I know that? That's a diagnosis. How can that happen?" It could be that your knowledge is being triggered by a whole host of sensations that's coming through to you, but you're not aware at the moment of how to unpack them. So there's a intuitive sense known as knowingness. Knowingness is what kicks in. So you almost have the answer, and that can make us nervous. Yeah. Any of you here where, you might have said, "Oh, I'm sure the animal said that he's got, like an abscess in his mouth, but what if I'm wrong? But I don't know where that information comes from." We kind of have these kind of questions, and then we start to doubt ourselves. Somewhere along the lines, you have received enough information for your knowingness to be triggered. But if you left it at that, where you're not therefore then consulting with the animal about it, this is where the doubt kicks in. So let's say you get the sensation, or you get the information that, the dog has an abscess in his mouth. When you start to use the animal's language, which is the intuitive senses, you can say things like, "Can you share with me what the sensation is inside of your mouth? Can you share with me what the taste is that you have in your mouth? Can you share with me, any kind of, again, say sensation, any heat, any coolness, around your face or jaw area?" And when you experience the information, then you know whether the thought that you have or the knowingness that you have is valid. Because it's so important to make sure that the intuitive information we receive is credible. And the way to make sure it's credible is to then communicate that to the animal. Okay. Any questions so far? Are you all able to relate to some of the experiences that I'm sharing with you? Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to go and use examples of the animals that you have, some of you have shared with me. And with this masterclass and all the other masterclasses, you will get a replay, but you'll also get this document where I have listed out what your questions are with the animal, and I've given you what I would be my suggestions on how you can expand the questions. And so this is now the part of the class whereby hopefully you start to piece together what I've been saying earlier to see how I start to form more questions that will give you the experience of presenting it to your animal and getting an answer, rather than asking the questions and then not getting anything back, or being confused with regards to the information, or thinking the information I'm receiving is not relevant to the question that I'm asking. So we'll go to the document in a minute. So let's look at some examples so that we can work, with kind of, like I say, putting the elements together. So this is Harry, and he's around 14 years old. He has a weak back, legs, and I'm wondering if he is coping okay, if he's still happy to go for a short walk every day, which he does seem to enjoy. I also wondered if Harry would like to try some wheels to help him with his walking. So I'm just going to give you my suggestions on how you, oops, hang on a minute. I want to go to a different screen. Okay. So this is Billy's dog. I think Billy's with us. Yes. Hi, Billy. So when we look at the three elements, the decision making. So I'm putting my spin on this, Billy. So you can kind of, chip in if you want. For me, the decision making would really be about ensuring Harry has a good quality of life. Would you agree with that, Billy? Would you say that that would be the decision making in terms of, when I say decision making, it would be, what do you want out of the communication, really? What would you want for Harry? Would you say to ensure that he has a good quality of life kind of sums it up? Yeah, cool. So as a result of that, can you see how when we look at that question, or when we, not the question, when we look at almost like the summary of what Billy is asking or wanting to ask Harry, it may not actually be immediately obvious that the decision that Billy is making as a parent is to ensure Harry has a good quality of life. So to me, being clear about your decision making is crucial, because that's going to determine the type of questions that you're going to ask. So if we didn't have the clarity of the decision making, and we were just going to say to Harry, are you coping okay? It's almost quite a big question, isn't it? Can you see how that question doesn't have anything that he could hold on to? I mean, what do we really mean when we say, are you coping okay? He could answer yes, he could answer no. Say he answers yes, but you see him struggling. You see him not able to go for walks as often as he'd like. You see him maybe looking a little sad. And then you're thinking, but then he answered yes. But if we look at the question, are you coping okay? It's too general for him to be able to give you, say, specific information for you to work with. So my suggestion, hopefully you can all see the screen, okay? So how would you describe your life since having weak back legs? Share the emotions you experience about walking slower, not walking as far, not running like you used to. And what emotions do you have when you're spending time outdoors? Can you see how already that's going to make it easier for Harry to answer? And for you to receive the information, which is the important part, yeah? So why would it be easier for you to receive the information? Because Harry would be able to share the sensation. He'll be able to share with you emotions, yeah? And when you know, say, for example, if he shared emotions about walking slower as sad, or that he's frustrated about not walking as far, or that he is angry that he can't run like he used to, you know the answer is he's not coping okay. But if you get the emotions from him that he's accepting, he is grateful, he is at peace, then you know he's coping okay. So it's actually easier for Harry to answer that question than, are you coping okay with weak back legs? Okay. So then you have your question, would Harry like to try some wheels to help his walking? So we could turn around to Harry and go, would you like some wheels to help you to walk? Again, he might go, yes, he might go, no, or he might say nothing because he doesn't know what wheels are. So I would ask him this question, would you like to move faster when you're outdoors? If yes, what questions do you have about using a doggy wheelchair? So I'll just pause here for a moment. I'd like to hear from just kind of maybe a couple of you. How did you feel about the questions? In fact, I'll come to you, Billy, if that's all right, since Harry's your gorgeous dog. If you don't mind me asking you to unmute. How do you feel now knowing those expanded questions to approach him? Does it change how it feels to communicate with him?
Yes, it certainly does. It gives more focus, and then I think it will be easier to get his opinion on it and his feelings on it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So that's good to hear. So we're going to keep going, yeah, because the more this is why it's great to use examples of your animals. The more you kind of start to kind of hopefully warm up with, you know, the three elements and how I'm phrasing the questions. Okay. Now, just before I do that, I'm just going to share the screen. I need to, let me just, my suggestions here for chili pepper. So decision making. So Joe, you're here. So I have pinpointed that the decision would be from your perspective is how to offer pain relief without the veterinary intervention, perhaps, or medical drugs. What would you say about that, Joe, about the decision making? Do you want to add your own?
Mostly what I've done is ask him, well, we've went with the vets, and the vets have given me things, and I give him that, and he's happy enough with that, but they're not enough. And so I tried to, when I ask, say, how are your ankles today? You know, is the pain very bad? So I tend to concentrate on that type of a question.
Oh, I see. Okay, so your decision making is really that your observation of chili pepper is that even with medical help, he still has pain, and you'd like to reduce it even more.
Yes.
Okay, so if I change that to how to reduce pain even more, so hang on a minute. So this is the part that's really, this is where the decision making really helps the question. So so it's good that you're kind of watching my process. So you can't always get it right first time, or you don't know it straight away, because what I'm hearing you're saying is that although he's getting although he has medication, it's not enough. Is that right? Or you're wanting him to be more mobile?
I want him to be more comfortable. When he's in pain, he doesn't move. So yes, I want more motion, but you don't want more motion if it's going to hurt. So you have to do something so that he will want to be more mobile. Am I saying this wrong?
Yeah, you are. So you're right, because for any animal, really, mobility is key. If they're not mobile, then I guess the question also would be, is he having quality of life if he's not mobile?
He did up until about 3 weeks ago when all this started. That's why I
So how to help him to be more mobile and maintain, say, comfort?
Perfect.
Yeah. Right. So when you really get into, so with health questions in animal communication, often what happens is that we just go straight into the communication with our animals. We go, okay, I want to like find out if you're in pain, or I would actually really tune into yourself first, because this is where the agenda, the decision making is crucial. Because if you're not clear what you're asking of your animal, your questions will reflect that, and then their answers will reflect that. Okay, so that's why this is really useful to have that process with you, Joe, because it took a little while before we go, oh, actually we do want him to be mobile, because it is important for him to be mobile, because a horse that's not mobile is like, yeah, then the conversation takes a different pathway. So what can you do, and what can you say to Chili Pepper, to get his view on wanting to be, number one, you want to know, does he want to be more mobile as well? So your question is, how can I help him? Now, when we present that question to an animal or to our animals, they don't often know the answer, because they don't know what we can offer them. So again, when you ask the question, how can I help you? So say if I'm talking to Chili Pepper and I say, how can your mum help you? It's likely that I will not get an answer. And it doesn't mean Chili Pepper doesn't want to talk to me. It means that he doesn't know. If he turns around and says, oh, I don't know, let's just make it silly, I want wheels, okay? And say Joe can't provide him with wheels. So I'm not giving him the best chance to make the best decisions with what Joe can offer him. Because when we communicate with our animals about how can we help them, we need to give them the right information. We need to say, I can offer you A, B, C, D, E, because then they can go, oh, I would like that. Oh, no, that's not something that I would read, what I would want. So if you take, for example, Harry, would he like wheels? That was a very specific request. But if you say, how can I help you? He might not know. He might say, just let me be, don't touch me. But it may not be the right decision that he can make, because he hasn't got the options. So what options can you offer him, Joe? When you say, how can I help him? Do you know? Because if he's taking medication and you're saying in the way that the medication is not doing enough, what other options can you offer him?
Well, we've offered hand walking at his pace.
Okay.
We've offered liniment.
Sorry?
Liniment, pain lotion, pain.
Okay. I might not spell it right, so forgive me.
That's all right. It's a hard word. We've stepped up the vet meds and tried other meds. We have a good farrier who, I've only had horses 2 years, or 3 years. So this is all new to me. So I don't know all of my options.
Yeah. And that's really where I want to support you when it comes to communicating with Chili Pepper. So again, thank you so much for sharing Chili Pepper with us and for this interactive kind of working together, because this is where is rich ground to learn. You know, I can offer you lots of theories, or I can give you my examples, but can you see how, I mean, hopefully you can all really connect in. When we don't know the options, it's very hard for our animals to actually answer, because they can't turn around and go, so say if you don't know about acupuncture, okay, and it's unlikely that Chili Pepper's going to go, I want acupuncture. You see where I'm coming from? But if you say, I can offer you an increase in medication, I can offer you the liniment, I can offer you the farrier, and then I really need to go and explore any other options. So you connecting with his emotion. How do you feel about the hand walking? Okay, now, if the emotion is, say, excitement or interest, right, that you get from him, then you know that that's something that he would like more of. If you get more kind of maybe a withdrawal or a bit kind of like anxiety around the hand walking, then you know that that's not something that he is going to feel comfortable with. So then you can visualize the farrier and, you know, ask the farrier specifically, what can the farrier offer? Yeah. So can you see how it's quite intricate, the communication, but this is where it will guarantee you an answer from the animal, as opposed to saying to Chili Pepper, how do you want me to help you? You know, we appreciate that we ask that question, because it reflects that we don't know what more we can do. So I would reach out, Joe, you know, either to horse communities or, you know, just to get lots of suggestions. And then you can present those suggestions to him to be able to get a specific answer from him. Then it makes you feel good because he's actually answering you. Okay. So let's go to some of the other questions that I have as a suggestion for him. Yeah. So your question is, how can I make him more comfortable? This is a really important question. And this can be applied in all, you know, in all communications with our animals where we're worried about their pain levels. So the way to ask that question is, what discomfort level are you experiencing? So this is what you say to your animal. Give me a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is low and 10 is high. So you actually specify to your animal what it is that you want for them to answer. It makes it easy for them to give you a scale of 1 to 10. So you start off with the general body, because the whole general body makes a difference. You know, so general body Chili Pepper can give me a scale of 1 to 10. You know, and if you get a 4, you know that it's, you know, there is discomfort, but it's not intense. And then you can go to the specific areas as well. And this is where it's important to keep a daily journal or a record keeping, because Chili Pepper is not going to feel the same every day. And what you want is a bigger picture of what's going on. So then you'll be able to piece together, you know, enough information to know how to move forward. Yeah, does that help? Okay, good. So let's go to the next one. Find the screen. So who we have next is we have Bert, who is Kim's kitten. And does Bert know that he has a heart problem, and how is he feeling now he is living with us? And the desired outcome would be that we know how Bert feels mentally and physically. So Kim has already specified her decision-making there. She wants to know how Bert feels mentally and physically. So again, just give it a go. What do you think would be the questions that you would ask Bert? If you look at the question, does Bert know that he has a heart problem? And how is he feeling now he's living with us? Just go with the first one. Does Bert know that he has a heart problem? So if you were to say to Bert, do you know you have a heart problem? How can you make your questions relatable to him so that he can answer the question without just being yes or no? Give it a go in the chat box. So Kim, you said, I've tried asking him how he's feeling, but all I get is a song playing over and over, right? So, you know, when I say listen for learning, this is where you want to smile every time you get an answer that you don't understand and go, so let's look at this song. What is the emotion that this song brings up for you? You can unmute yourself if you want to speak out instead. It's easier than typing.
Well, the song, it's going to sound really silly. It's I think it's You've Got a Friend in Me from Toy Story. And when that started, I think I cried, to be honest.
And the emotion is?
I was happy.
Yeah. Like really touched. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think I made the right decision in taking him on as long-term foster when he sang that to me. Yeah. So I think that's probably
that is how you can trust. And you got to have trust and you got to have faith when it comes to receiving animal communication information, right? That's how you can trust that that song is a communication, okay? Because it's not like, oh, that's weird. Why would I get the answer in the song? But the fact that you can connect with the emotion of it. Because if you think about from an animal's perspective, sometimes it's like, how can they send you a mixture of emotion, okay, that you can identify? But when you listen to that song, it's got a whole, almost like a bundle of emotions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All wrapped up in like a little gift that he's given you, okay? This is why we write songs, yeah? That songs and lyrics offer us a whole host of experience that is very hard to sometimes just describe in words, okay? So this is just kind of the fun part of animal communication. Okay, so some of you have got, do you feel like breathing or exercise are more difficult for you now? Okay. Carol, you said that too. Is it a happy song? What are the sensations or difficulties you are having? I know that song. I'm kind of feeling in him. His heart is immaterial. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to my suggestions for the questions to expand to communicate to Bert and see how that matches up with some of yours already. Okay, so to me, the decision making is you would want to know that you can manage his heart problem effectively and that Bert is happy with his life. Would you say that that summarizes the decision making that you need to be making when it comes to his health, when you're asking, does he know about his heart issues? Yeah. So I would expand the questions to, do you have sensations in your chest area that make you feel uncomfortable? Can you describe them? Okay. How do you experience your energy level? So I'm not a medic, Kim, you have much more experience in this. So I'm kind of guessing that if you have a heart problem, that it would affect, for example, maybe some sensations, you know, that it will affect your energy level, that you might get some dizziness and breathlessness. So that's why his answer to these questions will indicate whether he's aware of them or not.
Okay.
So say if he says, no, I don't have any sensations in my chest area. No, I don't experience any, you know, I'm high energy, or I like my energy. No, I don't get dizziness and breathlessness. You can easily and quite rightly assume that he's not aware he's got a heart problem.
Okay.
But if he does say, you know, if he does reply saying, yeah, I can get breathless, or my energy isn't always, you know, as constant as I would like it, then you can then in many ways, if you want to and you feel it's appropriate, explain to him that it's heart related. So he has that awareness. Because what you really want also is a communication with Bert whereby you get to a place where he can tell you, he can almost like keep you in touch with how he's experiencing his body, because then that will make it, I guess, not easier for you, but it will help you to know how to, say, manage the problem more effectively.
Yeah.
Because if he can describe how he's feeling, you know. So yeah, so if I describe what dizziness and breathlessness can feel like, will you tell me whether you have experienced these before? And if yes, is there a pattern such as mornings, evenings, night times, after physical exertion, when resting? And then, you know, we spoke about physical, emotional, and spiritual communication. How about asking Bert, please share your spiritual views for living life with a heart problem at such a young age? I mean, we have so much to learn from our animals, that they can really give us their insight, their view, and it can really help because, you know, now that we know Bert is 7 months old and he has a heart problem, almost like we can't move away from that as his identity. He becomes this heart problem. Yet, if we knew his spiritual view for living life with a heart problem at such a young age, I think that's really going to change or shift. I like the word shift better than change. Really shift your view on how Bert wants to live his life, which is really what you're wanting to find out. How does he want to live his life?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about these questions, Kim, to communicate with Bert?
Yeah, I'll give it a go.
Yeah, I think
You wouldn't think he'd got a heart problem because he's like the Tasmanian devil, but yeah.
Yeah,
I'll definitely
but to know from him,
it.
so you can say the way that I observe you, you know, run around,
Yeah.
it looks like you haven't got a heart problem, but I
Yeah.
want to know from you, you know. So how would you, I mean, how do we as human beings know we have a heart issue? We don't know until we have symptoms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. So this is, so you see, basically what this masterclass is about is the acid test, isn't it? What's the acid test? The acid test is when you ask questions and you don't get anything back, or it doesn't seem clear, or it just almost looks like it's hit deaf ears. It's time to say, how can I expand the question? So I'm not saying to you that what I'm showing you, this is the right way to ask questions, because I don't believe in right or wrong. What I'm saying is, when you're not getting an answer, it is not the end of the road. It is only the beginning. Yeah. So what I'm offering you here is where you have that, okay, I've asked my animal, what do you want? How can I help you? So that's another question we asked them. How can I help you? And we get nothing back, right? And they just look at us and you're like, you're looking at me. I know you're trying to tell me something. So then really say to yourself, I'm not asking the question in a way that's making it easy for them to give me an answer. So how can I ask it in order to do that? Okay. So I'm going to keep going, if that's all right with you, because we've got a couple more animals to learn from. We have Romeo, which is Carol's dog. So Romeo, he scratches and or chews himself in bouts. Some days I notice it and some days I don't. He eats wet food prepared for him from a pet website, takes supplements when I remember to give them to him, a joint supplement, a total body wellness liquid which contains fulvic acid, an anti-inflammatory liquid. Presently, a new supplement to balance his gut. He has been taking this for less than 2 months, and a liver cleanse powder. I add supplements to his food. We have wooden floors with area rugs, have 2 cats and another dog in the house, fescue and Bermuda grasses in the yard, lots of trees in the yard. Just this last week, I have been giving Romeo a couple of drops of zeolite. Okay, so what would be the decision making, do you think, that Carol wants to make? And what would be the question, the 1 or 2 questions that you would ask Romeo that will help him to answer you easily with regards to the scratching and the chewing? So we got some suggestions coming in. We have, do you feel more itchy after certain activities? Are you scratching or chewing because you're in pain? Can you describe what you're feeling? What supplements do you think benefit you more? Are you able to tell which supplements make a difference? Would likely have to split them out to tell. I can see you're all getting into the expanding the questions. Are you finding that you're being more creative with your questions rather than, for example, it could be at first you might think, I'll just ask Romeo, why do you scratch? Why do you chew yourself? But then when we look at what you're suggesting now in the chat box, can you see how it's going to make it a lot easier for Romeo to answer? But also, like I say, for you to be able to receive the answer, for it to make sense to you. We have, what sensation do you experience when you scratch or chew? Can you visualize what you think causes it? What does your skin feel like? Describe the sensations when you scratch. Are you happy taking supplements? So what we're getting here is that we're really connecting in with sensations and emotions. They really play a big part in offering us information. Okay. Oops, let's go to my suggestion. Get the screen. Okay, let's go to Romeo. So Carol, this is your beloved dog. Let's get you. So I've identified the decision making, but Carol, please add your own, to identify if the scratching and chewing is a problem that needs addressing medically, professionally, and to be confident that Romeo receives the nutrition he needs to ensure he has a healthy coat and body. What would be your decision making, or would you agree that that's kind of summarizes it?
Yes, I do agree that that summarizes it.
Yeah, but have you thought about that in this way, where you want to know whether it's going to be addressed medically or whether you can address it yourself?
He does, I just kind of in my mind thought it would be address ourselves because he does not like going to the vet at all.
Aha.
No.
In that case, we can refine the decision making to alleviate the scratching and chewing using home treatments. So that's more specific. So can you see how that's going to then influence the questions that you're going to be asking Romeo for him to help you or guide you? Because really what you're saying is, that's really my concern, is that when I see you scratching and chewing, I really kind of think I need to take you to the vets, but you really, really hate the vets. I don't want to stress you out. Yeah. So the first layer of communication, the way that you want to approach Romeo so that he would open up about the topic would be, I want to alleviate the scratching and chewing using home treatment. So I need your help to do this. But if he's sensing that you're wondering whether you should take him to the vets, then he might not open up as much, because he's then thinking, well, if I talk about it, you're going to take me to the vet. So you're being very specific. The decision I want to make with this communication to get the information from you is, can I actually do this using home treatments? This is what I want to try with you. Okay, so this can also come under behavior. So we'll use Romeo's example in the behavior class as well. But just purely from the health perspective, these are the questions I would ask him. Do you enjoy the body that you have? You know, a question that's kind of out of the box, because it's like, I want to know, when I see you scratching and chewing, I'm making the assumption that you're uncomfortable, but I don't know. So do you enjoy the body that you have? Are you at ease with how your body feels physically? What's important about that question is that, should Romeo answer, no, I'm not comfortable with my body, you are both on the same page when it comes to discussing it. Yeah, because then you can say, this is why I'm doing all these things, because you're not comfortable. Now, if he, for any reason, turns around and go, no, I really love the body I have, and I'm really, really comfortable with it, then you take the communication to the perspective whereby it's okay, but what I observe is there is something that's not right for you to be scratching to the level that you're scratching. So then you're educating him that although he may be comfortable, it could be that he's just comfortable because he's compensating. So this is where you can really open up your animal to discuss it, more with you. So then you say, I sometimes see you scratch and chew your legs. Are you aware that you're doing this? I worry that you may have allergies. Do you know what allergies are and how it affects your body? Let me share my worries with you so you understand why I keep researching the best food and supplements and getting you to take drops. So what you're doing here is you're really explaining to Romeo that I need your cooperation, because I'm not taking you to the vets because you get stressed about it. Therefore, I need to try a whole host of things. It's going to be a little bit hit and miss. And again, with something like scratching and chewing, particularly with health issues, it is really important to keep a daily journal or a record keeping. Again, to say scale of 1 to 10 for discomfort. And you do this even when you don't see him scratch and chew. Okay. Because then again, that will give you, a full picture. And then we'll cover this in the behavior class. What are your emotions before, during, and after chewing and scratching? Somebody wrote that in the chat box, so you're spot on there. Are there any situations that trigger this need for chewing and scratching? So we'll cover more of that when we meet on Saturday. Okay. Any good questions so far?
No. Okay. Very good.
So what this does, hopefully, when you're reading the question, so if you just for a moment, just look at, if somebody came up to you and say, my dog scratches and chews, I don't know what to do. I don't know if he's got allergies. I don't know if these supplements are helping. And we just ask the question almost literally, you know, why do you scratch? Why do you chew? We can now really connect with how difficult that question is for Romeo to answer. How could he possibly know why he scratches or chews? But when we ask it in such a way that we're suggesting here, you're going to get so much more information. So why is it important for you to be able to get so much more information from your animal? So it builds your confidence when it comes to communicating with your animals. So you're not thinking, I'm not doing this right, you know, because when you get nothing, yeah, or when you get information that is, say, not relevant or is random and doesn't really tie in with what you want to find out, you lose confidence. You think, I'm not doing it right. So knowing that it's to do with how you phrase your questions gives you another avenue to hit success with getting the information from your animals. Okay, so we got 2 more, I think, to share. Now we have Nelson next. We have Nelson next, but I'm going to move Nelson to end of life because Nelson passed away just a couple of days ago after Jules had submitted his information. However, he continues to want to be a teacher for these series of masterclasses. So we're going to move his questions to end of life. So we will be seeing him again on Sunday. Okay, so I'm going to go to Jamie, who's Anna's horse. Now, Anna and I had this communication actually together in a consultation, but what came out was so fascinating in terms of how to approach Jamie about the sores on his leg. And also the question that Anna had, you know, because she was worried about whether these sores were just mild or whether they were something serious. So what questions would you ask, Jamie, now that things are starting to kind of come into a bit of a picture of how you can get answers from animals? What questions or how would you approach Jamie about the sores on his front leg and how it happened? Okay, we have, how do the sores on your legs feel to you? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me how you got the sores on your leg? Are there things you don't want to do because of the sores on your legs? What were you doing when you injured your legs? Do the sores stop you from doing anything in your daily life? Okay, so keep them coming and then see whether any of those might match my suggestions or add to my suggestions. Okay, let's go to Jamie. So the decision making we identified because of the last question, really. Is it mild or is it something more serious? So I decided, or I felt that the decision that Anna was trying to make was, can I treat this myself or do I need to call the vet out? And when we spoke, Anna, we agreed that that was really kind of almost like the crux of, you know, what you wanted to get from Jamie, really. Now I put a little kind of almost like a little reminder here. Consider your animal's personality when it comes to communication about delivering treatment, which was, an example was with Romeo, because Carol said Romeo really gets stressed out at the vet. So a lot of the times when we're communicating with them about treatment, we also want to take into account their personality. So the question, how did it happen? I would say that I was wondering whether how Jamie would actually describe that, or how he could actually present that information. Because first of all, you want to know whether he's aware that it's happened. So again, it depends, because I think when, I can't remember, Anna, you can refresh my memory. When you asked him, you kind of didn't get anything back, did you? Was that right, when you asked him how it happened?
Yeah, I tried to ask questions about how it happened and I got nothing back.
Yeah.
And
so that is a sign that he doesn't either know himself or he doesn't comprehend the question. So it's important not to just keep asking that question, but then to go, okay, now I need to start asking questions that he can answer. So I'll say something like, are you walking easily? Can you share any unusual sensations in your front legs? Are you aware you have sores on your front legs? Because again, the assumption is that they know they have sores because we can see it. But he may not be aware. He can't see his own legs, So always check, does your animal, are they aware of what you can see? Are they aware of what you're worried about? Because once you know whether they're aware of it, then you know how to take the questioning forward. Because if he says he's not aware of it, then you know that when you're saying to him, how did it happen? No wonder he doesn't answer, how does it happen? Because he's not even aware he's got sores on his legs. Yeah. So the question is the sore mild or something more serious? So this is where Anna can say to Jamie, I will show you using visualization what it is that I can see on your legs, and I will share emotions of my concern with you. I would like to treat this myself to begin with, so I need your cooperation. So it was more important for Anna to communicate around the fact that she wants Jamie to let her touch his leg, apply creams or powders on his leg, not to run away, not to be awkward, not to kick her by mistake or react in a stressful way. That was actually far more important. That became the decision making. And then I will communicate with you should I decide it needs medical attention, and prepare you for what to expect. So can you see again, with that kind of shift in the way that you communicate those questions to your animals, you're going to get much more information. So suddenly, how did it happen doesn't become as important to the questions on, will you cooperate with me for me to treat it? Because as a human being, when we ask the question, how did it happen? We're the same with rescue animals. We're very keen on going, what happened to you in your past? But what we really mean by that is, if I know what happened, almost like I then know what to do, but not necessarily. I mean, if Jamie said, well, it happened because I was rubbing my leg against the hedge, in many ways, that still doesn't really resolve the issue. So what we wanted the decision to be was that Anna could actually treat it herself. How are things with Jamie, Anna? Any kind of updates on him? Is he letting you put powders on or creams on?
Yeah, he's really good about it. He let me cut the hair around the sores because he's so woolly, it's quite hard to see. It's sore, so still have the problem that if I try and put anything on it, he moves his leg away, just because you would when somebody's putting something on you and your skin is sore. But it seems to be getting better. So
Okay, so that's, you're hopeful.
I'm hopeful. I'm not in a hurry to get the vet at the moment.
Yeah, so it didn't feel as urgent, or you're not as worried. You feel more in control because he's allowing you to actually take a closer look at it. He's allowing you to shave the hairs off his leg. Whereas what we'll say to everybody else was, before Anna communicated about, using these questions, when she tried to go near his leg, he kept giving you his bum, didn't he?
Yeah, well, that's right. Because he let me do it to start with, and then because I put cream on it and it hurt him, he thought that I was hurting him.
Yeah.
He didn't know about the sores. So then when I tried to do it again, he was showing me his bum.
Okay, so there you go. So sometimes not sometimes, I'm going to say the decision making is the clarity that's going to help you with your questions. So this applies with your own animals, and it applies with when you're helping somebody else's animals. It might take a little bit of digging and a little bit of time to really get to the decision making. And then again, like I say, don't worry. This is really my hope for you, is that don't worry if you don't get an answer, because not getting an answer doesn't mean anymore that you're doing it wrong. It no longer means that it's not happening. It just means, okay, I need to just take a different look at this. Does the animal really understand what I'm saying? Does the animal really connect in with the options that I'm offering it? Or maybe I'm just asking a very big question in a very generalized way. Yeah. So if it takes away your frustration that you're not getting an answer back, then it's just going to make you more curious and excited and motivated to want to communicate. And that's really my wish, for you. So we're going to go one more to Elisa. I think I'm hopefully pronouncing the name correctly. It's Agrita's dog. Okay. So see if I can hide my bit there without. Okay, so from time to time, he has episodes of some digestive upset, gurgling stomach, not eating, feeling unhappy. He has food allergies and probably an autoimmune disorder, but it is difficult to get a precise diagnosis. I would like to know if he himself can tell anything about his condition and what would help to keep those episodes at bay or as rare as possible. And how can I help him feel better during those episodes? So put in the chat box as you're warming up now to how these questions can go. Does it make you more excited to share questions that are coming into your mind? What would be the decision making for Agrita? And what would be the questions that you would ask Elsa? Okay, we've got Carol says, "Wow, I heard your tummy gurgled." Do you know why your tummy made that sound? How does your tummy feel when it makes that sound? Are you aware of what things upset your stomach? Okay, any others? It can take a little while to come through the chat box, so I'll just keep that open for now. So okay, we have, are you aware that your body changing when things don't agree with your body? Yeah, okay. So I have specified the decision making for and Agrita, please either add or say that this is, what you agree with, is to minimize discomfort and decrease the frequency of the flare-ups. Would you say that that's what you want for him, or what would be your decision that you want to make so that you can approach him about the information he can give you?
Yes, that would be the aim of the conversation.
Because this is a really good example as well, is because one of the things that we may not be conscious of is that often we are asking our animals to diagnose their issues. We're not conscious that we're asking them to do that, but we are, because we're saying, tell me what's wrong. And when you don't get an answer, it's because we're actually really saying to them, can you diagnose what's wrong with you? And if we, again, we don't really get an answer from them, just be aware and just go, okay, I'm asking you in a way an impossible question, because how can you actually diagnose, what's going on with you? But what animals can do is really share with us how they experience things. So the way that I see it is, when we communicate, when we use animal communication with our animals, we're really saying to them, can you give me all the clues? Yeah. Can you give me all the jigsaw pieces? Because they can't really put the puzzle together, but we can. Now, we might need help to put the puzzle together. So say, when Alessa really gives you lots of different sensations and emotions, you could then take that information to a practitioner and say, this is what he's told me that he feels when he eats a certain food, or when he, when he's stressed or when he's excited, this is how he feels, or this is the sensations that his body goes through. That's great information for a practitioner to work with, rather than he gets an upset stomach, so we can really give as many clues as possible. So I would like to know if he himself can tell anything about his condition, what would help to keep these episodes at bay. So I would ask him, how do you feel about the body you have? So kind of similar to Romeo, so that you can get a sense of whether he's comfortable, uncomfortable. You could also find out whether is he upset by it? Does he get anxious? Does he not like his body? Does he feel that his body doesn't work well for him? Or does he actually kind of got, is something that he's got used to, that some days he doesn't eat, other days he does, but the way he feels about his body is like that's normal to him. So from his perspective, and what is your relationship with food? I think that's going to say a lot, and how do you feel about eating? Because if he gets stomach upset, is he anxious around food generally? Does he get excited about food, but then afterwards he just almost, feels bad that he's eaten? So I would ask it in such a way as, can you describe the sensations when you're eating, when the food enters your digestive system? Can you describe the sensations experienced after eating? For example, an hour later. I'll also ask about the mood after eating. So again, when it's to do with really fine-tuning, looking at episodes and reducing flare-ups, or getting more information about why does it happen, and when it doesn't have a consistent pattern to it, you want all these clues from him, but record it, so that you can go over the communication and then compare with what you can observe physically. So, for example, you might see that today's a day where he eats very well and he doesn't seem to have any discomfort. You still want to be able to ask him to describe the sensations and then say, what's your mood after you've eaten today? Now, it might surprise you. He might still say, I still feel really anxious. So it says, so what you're finding out is that even though he appears on the physical, from what you can observe, to be eating and fine, but he still has some anxiety around it. That tells you it's constant for him, that he's anxious about that. So then what you can also ask is, when you have episodes of digestive upsets, what emotions do you experience? I observe that you're unhappy. Is that the strongest emotion you feel? So for those of you who are here right at the beginning of the class, I got you all to look at the emotion wheel. That's something that you can look up on, say, the search engine and just type in emotion wheel, because it's the image is subject to copyright, or you can click on a link and you can actually purchase the chart. But again, it helps your animals to pinpoint which emotions, rather than you waiting for them. And if you yourself don't have that range of emotion to really receive, you can use the chart to be intuitively guided to the emotions. So that will help you when you're charting, because he might look upset, but then maybe the emotion is accepting. Then that helps you to know how to support him. Yeah. And how can I help him feel better during those episodes? So again, this is very much around what options can you offer him? What options can you offer him physically? What options can you offer him emotionally? What options can you offer him spiritually? So you could say, for the days that you're not eating very well, and I see that you're unhappy, would you like a massage? And if he says yes, you know that that's going to help him feel better during those episodes. Or you might say, would you like to be left alone, in a quiet room? So offer him options rather than an open question that is so, that he doesn't know how to pinpoint for you. How does that help you, Agrita, to have a further communication with Elisa?
Yes, it does. I liked those questions about food, that they're so specific that I can really go deep in this, how he feels about eating. So yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Because if you think about how, if food is actually almost the trigger for your stomach to be feeling, cramps or discomfort, then you're going to have a different relationship when food is being presented to you. So even though you might want to eat and you might enjoy eating, there might actually be some kind of, emotion around it that could do with being supported. So it could be that he wants to, maybe you can help him feel more relaxed before he eats, or maybe it doesn't have to be relaxed, maybe uplift his spirit or distract him or something. You'll get more clues, won't you? Yeah. Okay. So those are the animals that you've all very generously shared with us. And thank you so much, because I wanted it to be what I call real examples that you can work with. And I see that from the beginning of the class to the end, you all got more creative with your questions as well, which is great, to see. What's the one thing that you would take away, as from now, hopefully, knowing that when you get to that place where you want to communicate with your own animal or with somebody else's animal, you ask a question and you don't get anything in that moment. What's the one thing that you will start doing, having kind of got got through nearly 2 hours of this masterclass, which I'm very impressed for you staying. What would be the one thing that you can start to put into practice when you've asked your animal or somebody else's animal a question and you're thinking, I'm not really sure I've got anything back? Let's see what your answers are. So, yeah, be more specific. Yeah, we got a couple of more specific, be more expansive, to think more about what I'm hoping to get from the communication and how I can better phrase my questions. More specific, be aware that because I understand the question, it doesn't mean the dog will understand it, or even if they do, that they may not have an answer. That is huge, Linda. Huge. Ask the question in a different way, sharing emotions. Emotions really is the key. When you get nothing, those of you who've been working with me for a while now, and you come to me and go, I don't get anything. I am known to then say to you, tell me the emotion of that nothing. Tell me the emotion of that blank that you got. And I haven't met one person that has then turned around to me and go, don't know. When we really tune in, and then they'll say something like frustration, and then immediately they assume it's their frustration. And then I go, is there a possibility that that's your animal's frustration? That that's how they're feeling right at this moment in time, and they're communicating that to you. Okay. So ask different questions, offer options to choose from. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. So my wish is really to move you forward in your animal communication, where you have kind of thought, you know, what's going on here, because I can't get to the bottom, or I can't seem to move forward with being able to help my own animal. So remember, this applies, what I'm sharing with you, the 3 elements applies specifically, I would say, for health, behavior, and end of life types of communications with our animals, where we are looking for an answer. When we are freely communicating with animals without the need for looking for a solution, when you're communicating with the bumblebee, when you're just sharing emotions and sensations with your cat as you're cuddling it, you know, and there's no need for questions and no need for finding solutions, etc., then, you know, it just happens naturally. This is where you can help your animal in a really effective way. This is where you can help other people's animals in a really effective way. And you can also help the animal's person to get clear about what they're asking for. Okay. So we've got more for the behavior. For those of you who've booked into the behavior, we're going to be using the same 3 elements with a different agenda, because I find that with health, the agenda is decision making. With behavior, it's a different agenda, but I'm not going to tell you what it is, so that you will turn up to the masterclass, and then we'll do some more of those. Okay, so between now and then, if you do have an animal that you want to nominate as a learning example for behavior, yeah, please email it to me, you know, before Saturday, well, really by tomorrow. Okay, so thank you so much. I did say that I was going to go over the 1 hour.